Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the May 2021 Marketo User Group Roundup. My name is Michael Tucker. I'm the Marketo User Group leader for the manufacturing mug, and I'm joined by my co-host, Warren Stokes, from the European Virtual Mug. Say hi, Warren.
Hey there.
Today, we're really lucky to be joined by a regular guest for the Marketo User Group Roundup, Trent Cross from Revenue Pulse, about Salt Lake, who's also, you're the co-host or the co-leader for the Salt Lake City Marketo User Group, right, Trent?
That's correct. Yep.
All right.
Andrew Parker's the other cohort in arms. So yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what's going on in your world, both from the Salt Lake City User Group, what you've got for upcoming meetings, and then of course with your work inside of Marketo.
Oh boy, yeah. Okay, let's see. So what we're doing in Salt Lake, pretty much it sounds like pretty much everybody else did the same thing in the month of May, right? It's kind of like everything's virtual type of a deal. So we took the month of April off, so to speak, right, to support the Adobe Summit. And then, of course, in May, we obviously did the recap of which sounds like 99.9% of all the other mugs did as well, plus a few other things. But just kind of a recap of what's going on. What we did actually prior to that one in the month of March, I guess, kind of get them on a month straight here, but the month before, we took advantage. I'm a big basketball fan, so especially college ball. So we took advantage of the March Madness scenario and basically did. We invited 4 individuals to come in with their final 4, kind of the championship rounds, and say, hey, look at all the sessions that you're registered for. Give us your final 4, and then go down to your semifinals, and then kind of champions along those lines. Of course, kind of trying to kind of get some ideas, kind of that thought process from that standpoint. Have everybody kind of say, hey, who do you think is going to be the best one session out of all these sessions virtually across the board? So quite interesting to see kind of where people's minds and thoughts were from a standpoint, both from a standpoint of Marketo areas, as well as just kind of looking at overall the kind of additional Adobe sessions out there that people wanted to kind of dip the toes into across the board, whether it's, the AEM stuff or AEP or analytics or things of that nature. Was kind of interesting to kind of get people's perspectives. So I think we're starting to see a few of, not a few, but several of the actually, I'm seeing several people actually in the old Marketo bleed purple type of world starting to dabble into the Adobe elements and standpoints from a standpoint, which I think is actually really good. I think it's important for us to look at kind of the bigger pictures of those elements. So, which I thought was really quite interesting that people are actually willing to dip into that one. And being virtual, it's you don't have to run from room to room a little bit, right? You kind of jump from virtual room to virtual room. If something didn't hit your fancy, jump to something else, right? Really quickly. So that was kind of pretty fun. So
Yeah, yeah.
anyway, so I think that's a good thing. So
Do you have another event that's scheduled on the Salt Lake City calendar? Like
we actually have one that's got to put on the calendar. I have to kind of get it registered. I'm a little behind. You have to be off for a vacation and some change. Of course, I'm a Memorial Day weekend, right? But
yeah.
we have one scheduled for here in June. Andrew and I have not quite figured out what we're going to talk about. So I think we were toying around with the idea of trying to, here in Utah, we can actually meet in person for up to like 50 people. So we're toying around with the idea of kind of going back into in-person stuff, but we just have to find a facility to do that. So that's kind of the challenge that we have at the moment. But so we're going to do another virtual one in June and maybe do a live one in July. So we'll see kind of how we find some locations. So that'd be kind of fun, just kind of get back and see people face to face virtual versus the kind of the over the Zoom,
Yeah.
whatever technology tool that people are using. So we're kind of looking forward to trying to get that kicked back off again. So
I know I'm working on the same thing actually. So my next Marketo User Group session is June the 10th with Jimmy Spencer, who's from Verizon Business. He's a friend of Helen Abramova's that introduced me. And he's been in Marketo for 10 years. So he's going to be talking about kind of personalized nurture programs and trying to build out content around that. He's got some really neat tips. And I love the way that he presents things. So I think he'll be really refreshing. We haven't heard a lot of Marketo User Group sessions that he's been speaking on, but he's one of those individuals that has been in the product for a long time and is just starting to kind of share some of his insights. So I think there'll be a lot of neat things that will come from that. That's June the 10th. And then to your point too, also we're on in-person events, just starting to launch out a marketing summer camp theme that we're doing in Atlanta and in Seattle in July and in August. So lots of busy stuff happening there. And kind of the crux of it is just like, let's get back to do in-person events, but also smaller ones so that there's still the opportunity for us to do some social distancing and yet still interact. So just working on the details on it right now, but we're starting to do tickets for it and booking out the hotel rooms for people to go out to. But the idea is to do them outside of big cities so that, if we want to go water skiing or something in the afternoon or do team building activities, the morning sessions will be marketing sessions. The afternoon ones will be kind of community building. So it'll be a lot of fun to do that.
I like that, Marketo and ski.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm based in Michigan and there's no good mugs around me. So I personally really liked the transition to a more virtual world because it helps me stay closer to the community. So I'm a little saddened for in-person events to open up because then the virtual ones kind of go to the wayside. But I digress.
There's two ones that will always be virtual, right? So there's the North American virtual Marketo User Group, and we have the EMEA Marketo User Group, and that will always be virtual for that very reason, is that some of the localized places don't have the facility of a local Marketo User Group. So there'll probably still be a handful, and I think what we'll probably see is maybe just a hybrid of both. But I know that obviously people were itching to get back to the in-person. But I still think there'll be a handful of virtual mugs where appropriate to still as well.
No, I think you're right, Warren. I think the idea kind of the blend, because we're actually been toying around with that idea concept too, because just from location wise, I mean, depending on kind of what even part of Utah, it depends on what part you're at. You can be in the far north of the regions of the state where I'm at. If to get down to people where most individuals are at, it's probably about an hour and 15-minute drive, which is not bad because I don't mind getting out of the home office and driving from that standpoint. But some people don't like to make that commute, right, across the board, and that's why they like working where they're working. And so, yeah, Sam, to your point, I mean, I think we're toying around with the idea of maybe doing a once a quarter in person and one or two virtuals type of a deal. So I think we're going to kind of go into a little bit of a blend ourselves as well. So, which was not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Sam, from your side, from our side of things, I mean, I've been running virtual user groups for almost 4 years now. So they're definitely not going away. And I think that what's changed over time because of the pandemic is people have seen exactly what you've seen about them being a lot more accessible. And then there's some limitations in terms of the amount of interaction that you can have with a large group of people. But there's also that added value of being able to meet and attend different events. And Warren and I both we've never met in person, ironically, but we have been going to so many of these different user groups around the world. I think when the pandemic first broke out, right, Warren, we were each going to every single one around the world.
Yeah, every single one, because it was like, right, I'm locked in, let's get some knowledge.
So if you look at the first mug roundup that we had was a quarter. I don't know how we did that in an hour. I think we did 90 minutes, but we had a lot of user groups to be able to cover off. And, I think that European one was really born out of the value that you and Chloe saw. That you guys are presenting tomorrow, if I remember correctly, right? Your next event is coming up really soon, isn't it?
Yeah, I should know that, but it's coming up next couple of weeks, I think, and I know what it's on, which is the plus side. I hope Chloe's not listening. It's the custom objects. So we've got John Grundy, who is a Marketo champion this year, and he is a whiz with custom objects. And it's one of those things that most people know of. It's rarely used, but it's a really nice deep dive session on that. And it's just another way of just looking at what Marketo user groups are going on and just facilitating a topic that is I guess going into that more deep dive ones. So because we tend to go a mix between the more strategic, which we did last time, I think, and then the deeper dive and technical ones where we're showing our screen, sharing knowledge, and talking about a very specific topic. So we try and be quite organized because we know it's going to be always virtual.
Technology one sounds exciting. That's a really underused facility inside of the application, I think, to really start to drive some value where people don't realize how flexible it can be.
Yeah, totally. Because it's the one-to-many relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really want to see that one too. I think a lot of people get intimidated by it initially if you come from the marketing side of things, but if you understand the data side of things, the bridge isn't too bad. Once you cross it too, it opens up so much more flexibility. Let me pivot a little bit. I should have said this at the beginning of the session if we haven't been to a Marketo User Group Roundup before. And for everybody who's watching this on the YouTube recording, so a couple of different things from this. Number one is the whole point of this is to be able to condense all of the different content across the Marketo User Groups globally that happens, to kind of Sam's point about all these virtual sessions that you can attend into an hour. So you can watch this one session. It kind of gives you an index, if you will, or kind of the highlight reel, if you think of sports, of what happened in the Marketo User Group community over May, the last month. And then you can go to mugs.marketo.com and watch any of the footage, or go to the YouTube channel by just searching the virtual Marketo User Group channel. And so that's what we're going to cover off today. So Warren and Trent and I are each going to take turns and kind of round robin it. And I think is what works best, and kind of talk about some of the different mug sessions that we've attended or that we have followed, and then go from there. So let's dive into that right now. And before we do it, I want to kind of just talk a little bit about upcoming sessions that happen here. So this is the YouTube channel itself. Now I made a quick redirect here off of my website. So it's conversionstore.com/video if you want to go directly to the YouTube channel. And if you're watching this, you can subscribe and sign up for the YouTube channel by just clicking on the link below. And I think hopefully I'm pointing in the right direction.
It's gone off to the wrong screen again.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah.
So let me.
It's showing your PowerPoint.
It's showing your PowerPoint. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let me just change that back here a second. And you can tell I have a different background here. So I've sort of switched locations geographically, and now switch locations.
That's it.
Here. Thank you. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so really all of the different Marketo user groups contribute content to this YouTube channel, and you can sign up and get instant notifications as soon as they're being published on YouTube, and then that allows you to put them on Chromecast and stream them to whatever your favorite device is. The other thing that's coming up here too, we want to just mention that mugs.marketo.com is the URL for kind of the heart of Marketo User Group channels. So, so if you haven't signed up to that one yet, you can do so, and you can now use your Adobe login information to be able to get access to those channels, or just log in and you'll create an account where you can sign up and attend all sorts of different ones. I think there's over 91 Marketo User Group channels worldwide, or user groups themselves, that you can participate in. And they're not just in English too. They're also in all sorts of other languages, French, German, Japanese, and that number is going to be growing as well over the next couple of months too. So,
the champion office hours is also now in Bevy as well. So you can see and sign up for the champion office hours now, that are hosted by the Marketo champions, and there's really a Q&A via the same sign up.
Nice. Yeah, good call out on that one. Okay, so the next piece I've got is the new, I keep wanting to call it Marketo Certified Expert. It's Marketo Engaged Business Practitioner Expert Certification. I hope I said that right.
Yeah. Actually,
and that's the new exam, and I think that is this the first month where that's active now, Warren, or is it's still going on for the next?
Yeah, so it's the first month, I think, since it's been since announced, but it's actually a really good resource. It's got practice exams, it's got different, like what modules it's going to ask you about and some other stuff. So it's actually a really valuable resource. So it's worth checking that out if you're coming up for a renewal for your MEBPEC or however.
MEVPEC.
Yeah, that.
Adobe is full of these acronyms that are really easy to say and remember.
Yeah, exactly. But it is actually a great site, and it was sort of missing the last couple of months as people were coming up for renewals, but now it's live, so you can get everything you need for your upcoming Marketo exam on that.
What has everybody heard about the new format of the exam itself has changed a little bit, and so if you want to just cap that briefly, what are those changes? And
Well, I think there's more questions. I think there's a lot of more. So basically, a lot of the champions kind of supported that team and kind of with the questions as well. So it's supposed to be a little bit harder as well, with a variety of just different areas covered. Like I felt like it was missing. It was focusing too much on other areas that it shouldn't have been before, like things that you'd never utilized really, in terms of some of the more in-depth people performance reports or anything like that. But now I feel like it's a lot more balanced. I'm due to take mine fairly shortly, so I'll probably have some updates in the future, but it's useful that this page has gone live anyway.
Okay, excellent.
And I heard the same thing, Warren, is that, and I also heard too, something quite interesting is that somebody took it just recently, and when they went to register for, obviously, the kind of the proctor exam, they actually had a choice to choose between the new one or the prior one.
Ooh, I didn't hear that. That's a.
So mine's coming. Actually, I need to do mine this month as well. So I was like, okay, that'd be great to kind of take it kind of like a either or type of scenario. So it'd be interesting to see if that's still even available. But yeah, so I've heard some of these new these resources are better. I haven't heard anything more about the test. One person basically kind of did a download of a bunch of information, but the test was bad. But there's just more different resources across the board rather than just kind of tactical. Kind of here's kind of the focus of different pieces. So yeah, that's all I've heard so far.
Okay, great, good. Yeah, I've heard that's available, but that's going to be changing really soon. They're going to retire the old one, so you won't be able to choose it. And I think it was either the end of last month or the end of this year. But I don't want to say one way or the other. I think that might have changed a little bit, but it's not going to be the full year. So if you like the old exam for whatever reason, or that was maybe it was easier to pass or something like that, you better write go in and start studying and try and write it this month. So for anybody who's listening. Okay, and then let's just talk quickly about upcoming opportunities. Well, this isn't upcoming. It already happened at Adobe Summit, but what the great thing is because it was all virtual, is all of these sessions were recorded. And we'll get into this a little later on when we get into the Marketo user groups, but a lot of the user groups this month were geared on recaps, either by people who were Marketo user group leaders who attended the sessions and gave detailed notes on them, or by the actual presenters themselves that kind of recapped, what they talked about, and then maybe added in a little bit of extra as well too. So, so definitely, if you love the sessions at Summit, there's a lot of really good content that's there. You also have additional resources that you can use from the Marketo user groups to give you kind of that extra boost inside of the sessions as well too to attend. Okay, so that's at summit.adobe.com. So feel free to log into that. And again, there's no cost for any of this. So this training, the market value of it is several $1,000s. But again, because everything's virtual, they're able to kind of record and put these sessions in online. You have the benefit of being able to go to that one site, that summit.adobe.com site, and get all the information.
It's also worth noting that a lot of the local offices for Adobe will be hosting viewing parties over the next quarter to recap on people who couldn't attend at the time because the stuff's up for some time, and they're doing highlight reels of the best things to watch.
Well, that's great. Can you reach out to your local CSM to get that, Russell? How do you get invited?
Yeah, I mean, speak to your CSM or speak to whoever your Marketo specialist is. and they should be able to tell you if there's a viewing party on. We've held a couple here recently that have been very successfully attended. So for all the products in our field, so not just for Marketo, but for campaign and the other things. But and then if people want, part of the role that we're supposed to do is to tell people which are the best of the best, the things we saw that really resonated. And there's half a dozen of those that really stood out for Marketo at the event amongst the hundreds of sessions.
Nice.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about this. Our CSM at Marketo she's not the best, so I don't really get a lot of great answers from her. So there's another avenue to get that information.
Just keep in mind, this is recorded and we're sharing this. So don't
Sam, I'll let you into a secret. We have
I'll tell her myself. I don't mind. She knows it.
Sam, in our internal team meetings we have every day as a social, just to sort of keep our minds set. We have a policy of, if you mention a name of a role, you have to actually name the person. But I won't force you to do that here, don't worry.
Thank you.
Well, that's great. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Michael, one last thing on the summit before we go on to the mug thing is that one of the things you'll find now is that some of these features they launched at Summit are now available in your instance. And that's where I think it's critical to then go back and rewatch it. The example being things like the executable campaigns that are now available, or like the bot filtering within admins. And finding out details around that. And then we'd already provided some feedback that we need some more detail on that. So there'll be some more details coming out on some of the features that were launched in Adobe Summit, but that's a worthwhile use of it. Of those
good catch, that.
That's a great point. Now, I as you're saying that too, Warren, it dawns on me. One slide I didn't have in this deck that I wanted to add, and please forgive me for not doing that, is the Adobe Experience Maker Awards are coming up. I don't know what the date of it is for the life of me, but it's in the next like couple of weeks, I swear, and it just recognizes different achievements for different different stakeholders, different agencies, different power users, different clients. There's an ambassador award, which I think Jessica Cow from the Silicon Valley Mug is up for. And there's all sorts of different types of awards that are available. So there's a gala evening, and I know I've got a LinkedIn event request for that, but that is coming up. And if somebody could find the date for that for me and just share that on this call, that would be really helpful. In the meantime,
I can find.
Did you find it?
No, I'm just going to find it now.
Okay. All right. But we'll definitely, you'll see it on advertised on LinkedIn heavily. And with that, let's dive into the Marketo user groups, and we'll announce that Experience Maker Award by the end of this session before we hang up today. And Trent, you're the guest today, so if I can give you first grabs and just start us off with one of the sessions that you attended or want to talk about, and then we'll go Warren, and then I'll circle back, and we'll just keep round robining it for the rest of the call to kind of go through this list of Marketo user groups.
Sure. The kind of part of it seemed like almost all the ones that were done this month actually were the week that I took off for vacation, which was kind of, for good or for worse, I think it was like 8 in that same week, which is kind of crazy, so which is okay. I just spent a lot of time actually online. I literally disconnected that week, which was kind of nice. So I had to do one session early in the Monday morning before I was gone, but other than that, I think, we talked about at the beginning of the session and stuff, several of them were all talking about the kind of Adobe's highlights, right? So, the Atlanta one was one of those ones from that standpoint that I looked at prior to us, for me heading off of some vacation. But, it was kind of fun. Like I said, just listening to everybody in regards to hearing people's insights of what sessions they liked and highlights from that standpoint versus other pieces of the puzzle, right? I mean, we all have different variations in our work schedules, or clients that we work with, or challenges that we have in our different companies. And And that definitely shows in regards to some of the feedback that people had in regards to kind of what were top of mind priorities, first from the standpoint of where you're registered. So I went back and looked at the sessions I registered for, and then come the day of the summit stuff, I actually switched a couple of ones because like, well, that was important back then, but wasn't important for me today. So, which is it's just kind of interesting to me, just kind of knowing kind of everything that's along the boards. Now, some of the things that I heard also, just some initial feedback were that some of the sessions were not quite as technical as they thought they were going to be, which I agree with as well, because I was expecting a little bit more kind of roll up the sleeves to get a little bit more dirty in regards to a few things. A couple of sessions that I thought were going to be really good ended up being, and I heard this once again a couple of places as well, seemed to be like infomercials for Adobe products. And so after I joined on one, and I don't know, maybe it was Warren that told me this, but maybe it was somebody else. But the point is that if you don't like it in the first 5 or 10 minutes, then it's not going to get any better. And I was a glutton for punishment, so I was watching a train wreck of one of the ones I was with, and I'm like, it's got to get better. It's got to get better. And anyways, 15 minutes later, it didn't get any better, and I finally had to check myself out and get a sense of reality from the standpoint, because all it was an infomercial with product managers. It was all Adobe people talking about the product stuff. It felt very canned in regards to responses and the terminology. So I did, yeah. So you heard some of that feedback as well that I heard from several folks from that standpoint, both at the one that attended, the one that we did, as well as just kind of overall feedback from that standpoint, right? Which is not to be, it's not good, bad, or ugly, but yeah. So I was afraid with some of the ones that I personally participated in that that was my very first one. I was thinking, man, if all of them are like this one, this summit basically just went down the tube really fast, right? So unfortunately, it was not that way, and actually some of the sessions went really good. So I think it was just just on a broad basis. It's really interesting just to hear people's comments about what was good, what was bad, what was ugly, so to speak, kind of what they got out of it. And there's also things that at the same time, right, that most of these were like 30-minute sessions, right? So not a lot of time to get really down and dirty like you do like an in-person where they have for like 45 minutes to an hour. So
what was the session that you were in? What were you doing for Summit?
So I don't tell you, I won't say the bad one that was really bad. So I won't put the dish on that for that standpoint.
Okay.
But, I went to this the Summit this year looking to kind of get myself a little bit more educated, more of the Adobe elements and processes from kind of the different pieces like analytics. How's that integrated into Marketo, right? Because as revenue pulse, we kind of have a few clients that actually are looking with Adobe Analytics and can kind of build like audiences along those lines from that standpoint. Then there's another couple of clients who are looking at AEP, and there's talk about kind of how that's going to integrate with Marketo and kind of how to bring all these pieces together. And so I kind of went into this saying, hey, I need to look at the kind of a bigger picture, because there's obviously all the solutions and elements out there and tool sets that are coming into play that are being pitched by Adobe that are integrated into Marketo world and that need to have a little bit better understanding of how all these pieces work together.
Nice. Let me toss it over to Warren for a second and kind of give some input and maybe any sessions that you Marketo user groups or anything that you want to kind of highlight for your first run.
Yeah, I mean, just on the back of Trent's comment, really, is if you've got any very specific feedback for the product team and the Adobe team, if you reach out to any of the Marketo champions, so we're talking about Marketo specific events from Summit, then we've literally gone out to product teams that have then sent an explainer or something that we can then share out. So if there's something that specifically, like Trent, if you've got that feedback one you really didn't enjoy, just let us know. Maybe after the call, after the recording, we can pass on feedback and incidentally get some further detail on that specific product that was mentioned if it was lacking detail. So just that call out is worth doing, because they are very accommodating, the product team, and we found that working with them. So just FYI. But the bit I do want to call out, which is nicely linked on, I would say, is the North America Marketo User Group about the secrets of a virtual event success. I feel like that's a nice tie-on. That was Lauren McCormick on that one, and the recording is available. And basically, she has gone through all the detail about, in her experience, what makes a virtual event successful. And so it's not just Marketo specific, it's cross-departmental as well. So how you work really well with the teams. She goes through the whole process of that. So those where you're starting to get attendance issues now, or people not signing up as much, it's very timely actually to release.
That was one of the top 5, I think, that we had this year. It was very good.
Yeah, it was really, really good.
Nice. Yeah, that's I actually moderated her chat during Summit, and it was really interesting to have her on the line, and also Caroline Hall, who's your co-presenter at Summit, and just hearing them give commentary behind the scenes about some of the extra things that they wanted to be able to add that they just didn't have time for too. So I suspect a lot of that came into that North America mug channel, so it'd be worth watching that to just see. There's a lot of insights that are there, and obviously time is the biggest constraint. So in any of these champions that you're able to talk to, cherish the time that you can get with them. I think it helps to add to your experience as a Marketo user, to also hear not just from the product features, but then how they're being used and implemented out in the field, if you will, right? What does that mean for their company's marketing plan, and how can you add those features to your marketing plan at your business to be able to utilize the power of Marketo to really drive some revenue home, or user engagement, or whatever it is that your marketing goal is. There's a really rich features set of functionality behind that.
The other one that I want to plug as well that I've got written down, other than the London mug that I presented at, which I'll get onto if we have time, is the Chicago Marketo User Group with Melissa Day. That was one of the best Marketo user groups I've seen, and basically that she went into Marketo. She was basically in her Salesforce around how she coordinated. The use case was, they were basically doing everything for spreadsheets, and it was how to set up from scratch. My mind's gone blank a little bit, but like coordinating between the Marketo and sales team. You were on that one, weren't you, Michael?
I saw the recording of it, and I thought it was funny because it was all Talladega Nights themed, but she really did go into the deep dive, and the Q&A is on there too. So
yeah, like literally in Marketo, like sharing like basically client work as well, and just the whole use case all the way through it. Just the elements of what she presented is worth seeing.
Yeah, I thought what the piece that I think I remember, if I remember correctly on that too, is she sort of brushed a little bit by some of the service level agreements and how they are actually sending out like notifications and keeping track of the data between both of those systems to be able to, because really it's I don't know, maybe volleyball is the right analogy, right? You're setting up your ball for to kind of spike into the other person's net, or I guess into the other person's field, right? And it takes a certain amount of coordination to do that. And with some of the complexities that she was dealing with, I think they were talking about how do you make sure that a lead is assigned to the right person that's handling the right line of business. A lot of the enterprises that use Marketo have multiple different lines of businesses, and even this addition with all of the Adobe technology and the Adobe Experience Cloud, really helps to service some of these B2B to C clients that are used as well too. So Melissa's, I think, some of her initial, you don't really know her business that well. That Shimura's company, I think, is what it's called. I keep mispronouncing it.
I don't know how it's pronounced, but yeah, it was basically everything purchase behavior, and how she set up the Salesforce elements, how she shows the operational campaigns, all of those elements. Just really went into depth. So if you're looking for ideas or something's not working with kind of your life cycle stages and stuff like that, that would be a place to get ideas, and very specific ideas of how to coordinate that into Marketo. That would be one to attend. Well, watch the recording of even.
Yeah. And big thumbs up, Melissa. That was great. You are incredibly talented, and we're really happy to have you in the champion community, and then happy to have you participating in the Marketo User Group community. So keep doing that. That was a great job. So really proud of you there. On my side of things, so we have a rare circumstance that happened this month, and it warms my heart to see this. I love these user groups. These user groups have been the cornerstone of my learning in the community for the last 4 or 5 years. They're also a kind of a social aspect as well too, and especially during lockdown, it's been great to have these user groups to be able to interact with different people. We had the birth of a brand new user group this last month, the Richmond, Virginia Marketo User Group. And hats off, this actually got born out of a before the lockdown from they used to do road shows, if I remember correctly, and Helen Abramova was hosting one in the Washington D.C. area when a lady in the audience, was asking during question and answer, why don't we have a user group for the Richmond, Virginia area? And Charmaine Fogarty, I think it's pronounced. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it, Charmaine. But she stood up and actually started a Richmond, Virginia Marketo user group, and they went into a case study about her company and how they've been using Marketo for the last 3 years. Really interesting. Mike Baker is her the main developer, I guess, inside of her organization. And so they're called Mission Square Retirement. They build financial services solutions for people as they're planning for their retirement goals. And he'd done all sorts of different technology. I don't want to get into all of it, but had done everything from velocity scripting and velocity tokens to different ways that they set up segmentation and personalization. A little bit of the same type of content that Warren was just talking about, that Melissa was talking about, between kind of the interaction between their sales, their CRM and their Marketo instance. And then also they had a BI component. And so they have I want to say a fairly large tech stack, like probably a moderate sized tech stack. But a lot of interesting complexities that they worked through with that. And I thought it was a really great case study. It was just a 3-year-old instance, so it's been around for a while, but there were different considerations that they took, and as they were expanding it out, it didn't start out the way that they've grown Marketo to use as a cornerstone of their department now. And both of them really talked about how that evolved over the last 3 years, and I thought that was interesting to see. So that was one that I really enjoyed a lot, and congratulations. It was a great first start in the Richmond Marketo user group, and I'm expecting a lot of great things from those guys in the next little bit. Trent, can I toss it over to you next?
Sure. Caught. What am I catching on here? So
different sessions. Anything else that kind of struck you from just looking at this that might be appealing, or sessions that would be good ones?
Yeah, well, like I said, literally there's 8 of them that were done while I was on vacation, which I thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, the Richmond one was the one that I thought was. I'm glad you were able to attend that, Michael. That's great to hear that we have a new one. It's always kind of fun to see people taking that ball and jumping on and kind of getting something kicked up again, because all of us know, it's difficult at best to get them up and running. And even when they are running, it's still difficult at best to kind of keep them running. So that's great to hear about that standpoint. I definitely want, you guys attend the Chicago one, so that one definitely is one that I would like to kind of go back in and watch and kind of review again from that perspective, from that standpoint. And then,
let me ask you one, Trent, about Silicon Valley is doing these neat ones that came up here. What is that? The 21st that was talking about job search skills during the pandemic, and they're doing a series on it. And so I caught the last one where they were talking about both Jessica Cow and Max Moria, their co-leaders, went through and did kind of a really candid, here's the timeline and the history of our career paths respectively, and how it kind of grew. It was really interesting to see. Jessica's, his story, she started out as a scientist, if I remember correctly, before she got into marketing. And Max was a 911 operator. He's the guy that answered the phone for 911 dispatch. And an earlier part of his career. So talk about two very divergent paths to kind of get in here. But, from your career perspective, and I mean, you have all this different talent that's kind of coming and growing and maturing through different pieces of your agency work, right? At, both where you are now and historically, right? But, what does that mean when you think about like the user groups that are trying to touch base on job search skills? Like there's a shortage of talent right now, right? So what's, if you were out in the market right now, what's your strategy? What would you do?
Boy, that's a great question, and that's very true. If we have another 35 minutes or so, I go through my whole diatribe about, because I have this really cool whiteboard thing that I do that I really kind of like. Actually, I probably should just do it one of these days and just kind of document it. But yeah, the short of it is, in today's world, it's really quite interesting to me that even pre-pandemic type of areas, that the growth of market operations as a whole is exploding. And yet the amount of talent and expertise is out there is limited. And the short of it is that there is a pool of opportunities, and there's a pool of experienced individuals, and then there's the overlap of those who are looking for new roles and opportunities. There's not enough, even if you took the pool of everybody who's experienced and willing to, that has in the market space, and want to slap it into the pool of possible openings across the board, there's still going to be a void. There's still going to be a vacuum. And so what that really means is that basically the old typical, economics, which was not one of my fun classes in college, but basically the old supply demand type of scenario, right? That the demand is outweighing the supply. And so in that case, most individuals, as they want to, can really kind of pick and choose kind of who they want to work with, and kind of when they want to work with, and kind of basically reach out with their talent standpoint, especially with the pandemic world now, because most organizations are willing to look at more remote opportunities rather than being in a geographical location. That's just opened up that world and possibilities even further, right? So what that really means is that people are going to also, on both the, I guess I would say the company side, who's looking to be the hires or the employers versus the employees, there's got to be a better match in regards to those expectations, because sometimes people are just hiring people without the kind of the skill sets needed. And that's something that I would definitely recommend to individuals. So, Warren touched on it earlier, kind of in the pre-pandemic world, opportunity to go out and learn, right? You need to kind of learn from these key people that are out there. People's, like the Jessica's been around for a while, and the Warrens, and I mean we could name off probably 2 or 3 different individuals, the Andy Karens, the Brooke Bardoses of the world, and others, that just to hear from them in regards to kind of what their experiences are, but also to kind of learn and kind of increase your skill set, because there's really not a kind of a growth opportunity. I mean, there's growth opportunities in the MOPS world, but sometimes it's really focused on kind of very tactical and kind of roll up the sleeves type of scenarios. And so you also got to look at kind of how does that work in regards to strategy and management roles, and kind of managing people across the board. Sometimes it doesn't happen, right? In regards to if you're just kind of fresh out of college, so to speak, or kind of happen into the market operations world standpoint, right? I mean, I look at kind of my career trajectory path, kind of where I've been and where I'm at today, and it's taken several detours across the board into different areas from the standpoint. And have I found a home that I love? Yeah, actually, I really do. And of course, that's after several gray hairs and a few many years on my belt, and across the board, of both being on different variations across from a standpoint. But the short of it is that the more that you need to be involved, the more you have to kind of increase your skill sets and your experience standpoint. So that one then is kind of really, you're responsible for your own kind of your career path to success, but at the same time, because of that one, you're also responsible to be knowledgeable of what you're doing and know that what you're getting into, because sometimes you can't jump into something and then realize that you're over your head. And then those people jump to something else, and now they start leaving these voids behind you, and that's kind of, we start seeing all these messes of people jumping jobs across the board as well, right? It's kind of definitely, it would be an interesting, definitely be an interesting, MBA project, plan. We get some kid out there to kind of look at kind of an evaluation of what's going on in this world type of deal. Is kind of a project for them, kind of a paper type of scenario, but. It's
Good.
definitely a kind of
To me, it sounds like somebody's missing an opportunity here. I think there's if there's a mass demand and not enough supply, then somebody should come up with something that actually fills that supply gap, and it's probably at the bottom. I think it's a case of perhaps tying up with some university departments or some graduate training programs, and get people into the MOP space, because it's something you end up in later in life. It's not something you tend to sort of go into day one. And I think that's possibly something that's missing. It's the number of times that I hear from customers, do you know a good MOPS person? Well, yeah, but they're all employed. And so you're going to have to pay them more to get them to move. So, there's got to be an opportunity to train people who want to become this way. Interestingly, it's with some of the competitive products out there, things like Eloqua, they've got that. Because it's such a technical product, they've had to do that. So I think if we could come up with some way of actually getting some generic education into the sort of the MOP space, as opposed to just Marketo usage. So the certification process we have does one thing, but there's something at the very bottom that's missing. I think it's really exciting. It could be quite a good thing, particularly with loads of students.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
As you know.
100%. I mean, it's probably one of my pet peeves, and kind of maybe when I retired I kind of have something else, more time in my hand, but I mean, you look at kind of the colleges and the junior colleges and tech colleges and things of that nature, institutions across the board, and they have great programs around marketing. They also have things around kind of technology, but they don't blend the two together. And the challenge is they don't, kids coming out of college, and I call them kids because they're kids, because way younger than I am. But the point is, the kids coming out of college, they got into marketing, all of a sudden they get tapped into kind of the market technology world, right? The chief martech stack, right? The market landscape, 8,000 plus, whatever it is, right? They're going to touch some level of technology, and a lot of times they don't even get introduced to any of that stuff in college, let alone else they hit the real world and they go, what the heck is this CRM tool? Or what's this other martech tool and stuff? It's crazy.
If I can jump in, so because we have 8 minutes left, but also this is a part of the reason why you should attend the Silicon Valley Mug. The recordings are there, and the new ones, it's a series. So Jessica and Max, I think, have another 3 more sessions that they're going to be doing around these type of discussions. So they're great Q&As. If you're watching this on YouTube, they're great ways to go into this thing. Now, I want to, there are some themes here. I think we're going to kind of, just for the sake of time, kind of quickly gloss over just some things that happened in terms of Japan. There's a couple of sessions that they did where they're doing case studies and user cases. So feel free to attend those. Really interesting one that they had done about what is the right way to kind of start off with a fresh brand new Marketo instance, right? You're a brand new user, you certainly set that up. So that's I think it was their Teleketo session that they're doing on that. So worthwhile to go in and then take a look at the recording. All of the Japanese mugs are now adding their recordings onto the YouTube channel and onto the mugs.marketo.com site. So that's a good one to see. And then Warren, you were presenting this month then too, right? In London. What was your session? Did I hear you right? What was your session about?
Yeah, we actually covered lead scoring. So it was me and Andy Karen. And Andy, who I'm a massive fan of anyway, she just has a way of putting things really succinctly. So I mean, yeah, we covered everything right from the setup to the more strategic side, and Andy had a really detailed approach on basically why you'd use a specific lead scoring model and how to do it. So that recording is available as well, but I talk around it from a departmental perspective. So how do you start to embed lead scoring and really basically make sure it sort of stays there? And because the whole reason you're doing lead scoring is to categorize it and make it easier for sales. So if it doesn't meet that objective, don't do it, or at least make sure that you've got the model working before you release it out to sales. So those sorts of things. So that was what we touched on, and luckily syncing up with Andy beforehand, so our presentations got neatly synced up as well. So yeah, that was what I presented on the London Marketo User Group, and yeah, those guys are great. They have some really interesting topics. I'm not sure when the next London Marketo User Group is actually, but I think it's we're now at that period in time where it starts to get a bit like, well, nah, maybe a couple of months. Are we going to be in person? Are we not? So particularly the London group, right? Because that was always in person. So hopefully
the problem that I have with the London group being in person is it was hosted by Adobe, and their offices are closed, and possibly for the rest of the year.
Well, that's that. Yeah, so at Russell's house, basically.
Do it in the garden as long as the weather's okay. You go for a swim in the river after.
Okay, let me, so we have 5 minutes left. So a couple of things to cover off and to quickly kind of gloss through. There was the West Coast Marketo user groups combined. There was, I think, San Diego, Portland, Seattle, all the Atumos groups basically got together and did kind of one giant question and answer session. Amanda Thomas in Houston ran a really interesting session about operational success. So some of the kind of key things about naming conventions and program structure and things like that. They're worthwhile seeing. In Charlotte, they did an interesting session where I live, where Courtney Toby and Christine Salvaggio did a session talking about a centralized data enrichment strategy. So that was an interesting one. And then also just kind of looking at other ones to look at. We had a really great discussion in Raleigh, Durham about Summit highlights. Trent talked about the Atlanta highlights session. Milwaukee was a really good one to watch. I just posted that one up on the YouTube channel a little while ago. And one of the things there, so both Kelly and Jay, the co-hosts for that one, each of them went in and they didn't do all of the sessions. They did 3 sessions. So it was Kelly, Jay, and Tucker, another member of their user group. And they picked each of the 3 of them, and then they picked their question and answers and their key learnings. So it was a really great deep dive, and would definitely recommend watching the recording on that one as well too. And I'm just skimming through this list as well too. That gives us a really good session. So the last piece I want to talk about too is New York City is still doing the office hours. If you want to get Sanford Whiteman's ear and get some free advice about like technical questions or anything else, he and Inga Romanoff are still doing office hours every Wednesday, and I believe it's at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and here in the United States. But they are going now for not half an hour, for 45 minutes to be able to answer questions and then have great commentary there. So that gives us most of the sessions that happen this month. Just before we sign off, any last thoughts, words of advice? I'm working to speak actually at 2 Marketo user groups this month, both for the Microsoft Dynamics one that's starting up. So if you're a Dynamics user, I'd recommend that. And then also for the Bozeman, Montana Marketo user group. So just working on content for both of those sessions, but they're in my calendar right now. And I plan to share on both of those in the 3rd and the 4th week, if I remember correctly, of this month. So a lot of work coming up here. Warren, anything from your side of things, or Trent, that before we sign off?
Nothing for me other than stay tuned on the Marketo User Group date, and that will be in the calendar. So yeah, going up soon. Okay,
great. And where do we net out on the Experience Maker Awards? What date was that? I think I saw a link.
23rd of June.
23rd of June. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I posted the link on the announcement within the chat as well.
Okay, so we'll put that link onto the YouTube channel. And then, Trent, thank you so much for always being here, honestly, to participate. So really appreciate you from Revenue Pulse and from the Salt Lake City Marketo User Group. Any parting words from you?
No, I think it's just other than just saying, hey, just take full advantage of the virtual events and opportunities that still stand, because, I think just like anything else, everybody's going to be willing and wanting to get back into the face-to-face world. And take advantage of these opportunities that you can. And I'm sure that, like I said, there's going to be kind of a blend of them in the future. So I don't think they're going to go away, but carve out the time because they're usually less than an hour anyway. So for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, you know, for as we're all trying to get back in person, please do your part and try and, you know, make sure that you keep us all safe. If you can get vaccinated, I highly recommend that you do that. And I've been through it myself, and, you know, it's part of the reason why I can go out now without a mask. So, and also with the safety for everybody else around me. So, so thank you again. These sessions are hosted on the first weekday of every month. So we'll be back then. I think our next one, if I remember correctly, is July the 1st, which is Canada Day to our neighbors to the north here in North America. But you know, everybody else, we just call that Thursday, or maybe Friday if you're in the other hemisphere. So thank you very much, guys, and we appreciate you, and we'll see you on mugs.marketo.com or out in the community.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thanks, you
Yep.
too.